Hey there, and welcome back to Cancer Unfiltered. I'm your host, Anna Maria Scaccia, and today we are shining a spotlight on Kesem, an incredible organization close to my heart that is creating magic for kids impacted by a parent's cancer. I'm joined by Jay Stillwell, the new CEO of Kesem, who's been with the organization since 2015. His journey began when his daughter attended Camp Kesem, and he's witnessed firsthand how the flagship program provides a safe, supportive space where kids can simply be kids and connect with others who understand their experiences. Beyond the summer camp, Kesem offers year-round programs like Virtual Club Kesem and Friends and Family Days, all 100% free, to support kids through and beyond their parents' cancer journey. These programs focus on peer-to-peer connection, one of Kesem's core values, and help build lasting friendships long after camp ends. We'll also talk about how Kesem helps kids cope with the anxiety, loneliness, and other challenges that come with having a parent in treatment, and how the Kesem community is giving these kids a place to thrive. So stick around as we explore how Kesem is making magic in the lives of kids and families living through a parent's cancer. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us on the Cancer Unfiltered podcast. I must say I'm very excited because Kesem is just one of the organizations that I cannot speak like enough about to people. Like, it somehow always comes up in conversation because it's really helped my son through both of my cancer diagnoses. So I'd love for our listeners, they've heard it, like, and I think pretty much every episode, I think I've mentioned Kesem. So before we launch into the questions, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of
It's
course.
to be here. My name is Jay Stillwell, and I'm the CEO of Kesem. We are, just so you know, the oldest and largest nonprofit organization that supports children who are impacted by a parent's cancer. I became CEO of Kesem in September, but I'm not actually new to Kesem. I've been on the board of Kesem since 2015. And more importantly, though, I've been a Kesem parent. My daughter joined Kesem programs, our flagship program, Camp Kesem, back in 2015 after my wife passed away.
Well, thank you so much for that, and I'm sorry for your loss. I know it's hard, and there are a lot of. I think that's the thing about Kesem that I love so much, is that it's not necessarily. It's not just for in the moment, right? Like in the moment or during the parent's cancer. It's like Kesem's slogan is, if you will, like through and beyond, right? Because it doesn't stop, right?
Right.
It just especially for the children, it just that cancer doesn't stop, even if unfortunately you may pass away, the person may pass away, or if treatment's ending and maybe curative. So that leads into my first question. Why are programs like Kesem and Camp Kesem in particular important to help kids navigate their parents' cancer?
I think first of all, you're right that once you're part of it, it goes on forever. And you are always a part of the Kesem community once you join. And my this will be her 10th summer engaging with Kesem in the programs. And she, like a lot of people, will say, I want to continue that when I go to college. And that'll play a factor in the college she chooses. But your question's great. Why are programs like Camp Kesem so important? I think first let's start with the numbers. The problem is vast. There are 5 million kids uh, who are impacted by their parents' cancer. That means about 1 in 15 children are impacted, have a parent who has had cancer, um, or is currently being treated for cancer or may have passed away from cancer. And think about that. 1 in 15 children means about 2 in every classroom. So the need is vast. And unfortunately, the numbers are growing because cancer has been increasing in, as you know, in younger
Yeah.
populations of parents. Um, and that just makes the need for our services even bigger. I'd say, childhood is, we all know, is critically important, and cancer interrupts that. And giving kids support at that time helps carry them and prepare them as they grow through adolescence and into adulthood.
Yeah, and you brought up something that just makes me think of my own experience with my son in terms of like how cancer changes you. And I've mentioned on the podcast before, but with my son Kelly, during my first cancer, it was really hard for him, and he was only 5 at the time, so he couldn't articulate how hard it was for him. And even through my second cancer, he was able to articulate it more, and it wasn't as um emotionally expressive, if you will. But you can see that it still impacted him. And in terms of change, like he's still, I don't want to say clingy because that sounds negative, but it's true. Like he's still very much by my side more so than he was before cancer, right? It's like if I leave the room and go into another room, it doesn't matter what he's doing, he's following me. I could just be going to get water and he's following me. And I don't even know if he recognizes that. I have talked to him about it before, and he's just like, I want to spend as much time with you. And I know I'm going off about my own story, but I think this leads into my next question. We already know for adults who are dealing with the cancer, we know that there's a huge emotional support and mental health gap, right? There are organizations like the KCA who have peer support groups that help to fill that gap, but um, it's still very wide. And I could imagine for children who are having to also deal with their parents' journey, it's probably even wider. And Kelly came to Kesem through Wonders and Worries, which is a great organization here in Austin, Texas. But that's only for a finite period in terms of counseling for him. Can you talk more then? And I'd say that to say, can you talk more about the long-term support that Kesem provides children and how that helps fill that gap that we see in like emotional support care and mental health care?
Sure. We have a number of programs. Our flagship program is Camp Kesem, which is the free week-long sleepaway camp that's offered at over 100 different college campuses during the summer each year. And then we have year-long programs that are virtual or in person. We may talk about those later, but the long-term care is that once you come into Kesem, you're welcome to repeat and come back, and so many people do. And we treat, and we don't treat, we
Mhm.
welcome children into our community through 18, really through high school. So beginning at age 6 through 18, you can be an active member of the community. And there are so many people, like my own daughter, who have come back to Kesem for 10 years in a row, or have engaged in, you know, Camp Kesem during the summer and then participated in some of our year-round programming. We have friends and family days that are in-person half-day events. We have a virtual program. We have new emerging programs at cancer centers. So the option to continue Kesem is there, and it's really enabled because of the community that Kesem creates for people. They feel part of something important.
Yeah, that's the thing I hear all the time from either the counselors here at UT Austin's camp, or even for full transparency for our listeners, I am part of KESM's National Parent Committee and also on the advisory board for the UT Austin chapter. But the one thing I hear from other parents who are a part of KESM and the MPC is that their kids who are a part of camp are like so excited to become counselors, and they're so excited to get involved in CAS. I mean, like, and to continue that journey. It's never, there's a family that gets built with Kesem and Camp Kesem that it's just magical. And I know Kesem means magic, right? That like the
Yes.
word itself means magic, and it is really so magical. And I think part of that is being able to talk to kids about cancer in a way that's um, really heartfelt and I think mature for them, right? Because it's hard as parents to know how to talk to your kids about cancer, and that's where my question is leading, right? It's really hard to know how to talk to your kids about your cancer when you are yourself going through it and trying to understand and process it. And I think Kesem, what I've seen provide my son is that even if it's not a direct like conversation, these counselors talk about it and they talk amongst themselves in a way that they just connect to, and it's a very honest way, and so I would love for you to, building on that, like tell us more as parents, like ways to talk to kids about cancer, right? Like what makes Kesem so successful in that regard, and how can parents take that back, and use that for their own conversations?
Yeah. Yeah. I think talking about it is exactly the first place to start, because you have a choice, but bringing people in, bringing the kids in, is so important because kids are so observant and they know what's going on. They know something's going on. I think actually I would just start approaching this question with really reframing what we mean by the patient. When
Yeah.
there's a diagnosis or a progression of a disease or a change that is substantial, I think of it can be helpful to think of the family as a patient, not just the person who has a cancer diagnosis. Because then once we start to think about or broaden our perspective on who the patient is, then we can think about, oh, well, what does that individual need to develop skills to cope and adapt to the change? And it all does start with communication. I think, a lot of people will say a really good rule of thumb, I think, is be honest. The
Hmm.
honesty is best, and do so in a way that's age appropriate. So you're not unintentionally scaring your kids, but you're
Yeah.
being honest and naming it and naming what's happening where there's a cancer, it's here in the body. In there we have a great team of doctors and nurses and people who are helping. And of course, it depends on the age and stage of the children in your life, to to get a sense of what's age appropriate. But I think bringing them in to the discussion is the first part. And then I think, we talked a second ago that cancer interrupts childhood, and it really does in
Yes.
every conceivable way. And so there's this lack of that life can start to feel out of control. I think giving the children some sense of agency and personal agency and a role, that they can understand that things are different, but at the same time, here are some things that will not change, or here are some ways that we can adapt to the changes. If you, it might be making your own bed, or it might be
Yeah.
helping help your brother pick out clothes for the day, for school age kids or younger kids, and you would change that for older kids and teenagers. Um, I think, one thing that we also don't want to forget is people want to help. They just sometimes don't know how to help. So many people will say, "Let me know how I can help."
Yeah.
And I find just giving really, first of all, you need help. We
Yeah.
need help. The whole family will need help, and so leveraging the community is so important. But asking for practical help can be, can let your friends and community know that they're doing something, and can also take some burden off of you. So, can you help me create a carpool? Can
Yeah.
you Can you help arrange play dates for my kid every Wednesday? Something ongoing that can take something off your plate and support your kids and help them feel like, oh, there's things are different, but
Mhm.
there are some things that I can count on, and I'm still getting connection and feeling some level of control about my life.
That's such great advice and so important because as parents, whether you are the caretaker or the one with cancer, we so often don't want to burden our children with our cancer, right? Like we don't want to burden our children with what's going on top of the guilt we feel for having it and for change, not only our lives changing, but changing their lives. And so I think that reframing of, the family as the patient is really important for parents because it, I think it will help us realize that it is happening to all of us and it's not something we should feel guilty about, right? Like that we're doing harm to somebody else, but that this thing is doing harm to all of us. So I love that reframing. And I love that you said giving kids agency. I think that's really important because you're also letting them decide to, and maybe this is part of what you're saying or not, but when I hear that, I think, okay, the child is deciding how involved they can be and what they can do and what is good for their own emotional state and like what they have capacity for. But I think that that is what makes it so successful as a camp and a nonprofit is that during camp it really does give those kids agency to feel the way that they need to feel. And so just kind of changing tacks, how do families become involved in CHESM? That's one thing that I know I hear parents have questions about. They're not necessarily sure. There's some things like, what does camp entail? What do I have to do? So I would love just to pivot a little bit for you to talk about
Sure.
how we get involved in CHESM.
Yeah, most people learn about Kesem through word of mouth. They're referred either by someone on the care team, a nurse or a doctor, or they've heard about it through a support group. And word of mouth is critically important, and we hope that you and everyone listening will help spread the word about Kesem because that's the greatest gift that you can give is support for children. Um, and the way that people engage in CASM, first of all, it's 100% free. All of our programs, there's never a cost to any of the families. And that's a critical value of ours because we want it to be accessible. And we know there's already financial stress and other stressors, and we're not going to add to that. Um, I think, the best way to think about this is the job that we're giving. We talked about
Mhm.
giving the job we're giving kids at CASM is to have fun first and foremost. And think about our flagship program. I'll talk about that for a second, the
Yeah.
Camp Kesem. This is like the best of a month-long camp, all squeezed into 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay, the kids are going to come there and they're going to have the ropes course, they're going to have pool time or in the lake, they're going to have arts and crafts, sports, more s'mores than you could ever imagine, and our signature messy games
Yeah.
that people just absolutely love. Um, Equally important, though, is part of the Kesem experience. A critical part is being surrounded by people who simply get you.
Yeah.
They understand you. There's no need to explain, oh, my mom's sick, or my dad passed away, or I heard that, that the results are unknown and we don't know. People get it, and it's such a relief to kids to be a part of a community where everyone just understands them. So they can focus on their job, which is having fun and forming relationships and feeling joy and a really critical amount of security of belonging to a loving community. We designed this as intentionally for connection. Peer-to-peer connection is really part of the magic of Kesem. It's how we form our units in terms of grouping people by age and our cabins so that people are together with people of a similar age. And of course, everyone knows that everyone else understands what position their family's in and what they're going through. But there's another connection, that's the mentorship from this volunteer college student leaders. This is the heart of Kesem. We have over 4,000 college volunteers at over 100 different campuses around the country, and they put on Kesem. They create the magic for these kids. They organize, they plan, they recruit other volunteers, and they they get an incredible amount of training for how to put on a week of KESM. And then, of course, they come back each summer throughout their college careers, and then they recruit new volunteers. What this does is it enables the kids who attend KESM to receive the amazing showering of attention by college kids. And it is absolutely incredible for kids' self-esteem to
Yeah.
be able to look up to really what becomes heroes to them, the counselors at camp. And many of them have connections to cancer, either personally or through a friend or a relative. So they really understand. That being said, we also have, we're not a therapy camp.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not
Yeah.
about grief camp. We're not a support camp. We are really and truly a community where you go and you have fun and you feel connected. We do have space, and we create space intentionally for deeper conversations. At the end of the day, we'll have cabin chats, and people can participate and answer questions or go around talking about any topic that might start light, and they might get into, you start with like a rose and thorn of the day.
Hmm.
And then the counselors are trained in how to guide these discussions, to also talk about, hey, I'm happy today because I don't have to worry about what's happening with my parents at home. And the power of hearing other kids, other counselors talk that sounds so relevant to what's going on in your
Hmm.
life. That's a very powerful experience, um, because of course, lets people know they're not alone, but it also helps them put words to their own experience and feelings.
Yeah. And you've mentioned communication being a really important part of talking to your children about cancer. But I think another thing that's really important, and you touched on it in that answer, is providing a space for community for them, right? Because they're going to, depending on the child, they're gonna latch onto you. They're gonna be tightly bonded to you. They're gonna like my son wanna be around you all the time. But there is something about that peer-to-peer connection that even without words spoken can just make you feel safe and belong. And I want to give a shout out to the counselors, because every time, this is going to be his fourth year, but every time I've gone to pick him up at the end of the, like at the last day, a lot, like some of them are just crying, and like because they don't want these kids to leave, because they form that connection with them too, especially those who may have a connection to cancer, may have lost a parent to cancer, or parent has had cancer. And it's just, it sounds bad to say, it's wonderful to see the counselors crying, but it is, because as a parent, it lets me know that my child is safe in so many ways with those counselors. And I again cannot sing the praises enough about it. um I did want to talk about, you have those cabin chats, it is all about fun, but what are some, to help parents understand their children more and how they're going through it, what are some emotions and behaviors that are commonly seen in camp as children are processing, whether it's their parents' cancer or their parents passing?
Mhm, mhm. It's such an important question, because we really do need to anticipate what our kids are going through. And of course, every kid is different, and every family's experience is different. So there's a lot of variety, but there are some themes though. I think worry is very, very common, and we see kids bring up worry about so many different things. Is it going to get better? Are they making it worse? Can they make it better? They have the power to make it better. We see, really, I think about it as a lot of adult worries, that are being sort of carried on these kids who don't have the capacity, or developmentally, to really understand how to deal with these worries. So that's very common. Being able to hear others talk about them is such a relief and brings relief. I think other things that we see very commonly, withdrawal. You talked about, oh, your son Kelly would, you know would be by your side all the time, and that might mean that he's spending less time with friends.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a disconnection that is very common, and isolation from friends. Norms are disrupted. You might not have someone to drive you to the friend, or you want to be by your parents' side, or just you're not feeling like you want the energy to go out and connect. Oftentimes we'll also see, and hear kids say that they feel like they need to seem a certain way to their other friends. Like they need to show up with a big smile, when they're not feeling a big smile. And having an opportunity at Kesem to know that it's okay not to be okay is also a relief to kids. Cancer takes so much time and energy and money and resources, time resources as well from families. Kids are often missing out on typical childhood experiences, and they might be playing an adult-sized role even as child caregivers at home and taking on responsibilities, either whether they were asked to do that or not. Um, and that's one of the reasons why we chose camp as a flagship program, to give kids for them to be able to go and spend a week, and their job is to be a kid again. And they get really important relief from the worry, and they're part of a community, so they're not feeling isolation. And they're you know are just sort of a smorgasbord of fun activities during the week, but also feeling part of this community and the opportunity to go deeper. So our programs really focus on fun and connection, versus a support group, which are also critically important. But the focus of Kesem is really to create memories and create relationships that can carry kids um, through the rest of their lives.
It's interesting. Everything you described is everything a parent who's actually who's going through cancer feels too. I think it's helpful for me to hear, because I never, I know what my son's going through and I see what he's going through. And I see the lasting impact. Like my partner recently just had gallbladder surgery, and like the minute he heard that he was going into surgery, like the sadness on Kelly's face was just, you could just see it, because for him, surgery means cancer and cancer is bad, right? And we had to explain it was because for other reasons, Sam's fine, all that fun stuff. Um, but hearing you say all of these ways in which cancer impacts the children and the child, and how it's essentially adult worries, like you said, like what adult experiences, it just, I don't know, it made something click in me. Like, oh, I I can kind of talk to Kelly one-on-one, right? Like it gives I and there's not a question in there, but maybe something you could expand on in terms of like thinking about our children's worries as if they were our own worries and what we're experiencing, and understanding that while there's a difference there, it's also very much the same.
Right. That's right. Talking to the kids, talking to your kids, first of all, just makes them feel seen. I think there's a lot of people, whether it's the patient or other adult family members, they really want to protect the kids. And because there's this primal um, avoidance of seeing your kid in pain, or this
Yeah.
urge to protect them from pain. And the truth is that the cancer is real, and there is no way to protect your kids from pain, and I'm not sure that that should be the objective. It's
Yeah.
Think of it as, how do I help them through this and support them through this? No one's going to stop them from having some amount of worry or some amount of grief, or whatever feelings happen because of uncertainty in the house. But connecting with them individually and talking to them and just naming it, saying,
Yeah.
are you feeling worry? And providing, the reassurances that you can, while towing that line of being honest and truthful, and also age appropriate. where the doctors are really smart and they're doing X, Y, and Z to treat the cancer. And I really hope that they will be successful. And um, it can cause me worry and uncertainty, but what I like to think about is what's within my control. Whatever is on your mind, I think, if you can connect with your kid and try and get them to talk as well, like what's going on for you. Even if they're young, it might just be naming, you know, sometimes when I worry, my tummy hurts.
Yeah.
Spending time with them and letting them know that it's okay, it's normal, um, and you will be like every other kid and having these feelings. So I think sometimes there's a worry like I've never felt this before, and therefore it's wrong to have a
Hmm.
worry.
Now, what about when, and apologies if it does bring up any emotions that may be hard, and you could totally pass on the question too, but what about when the diagnosis is terminal or it is metastatic?
Mhm.
How I know that's um I've heard, I can't say it personally, but I've heard from others that that is a very like difficult conversation to have with their children. So what are some pieces of advice that you may have for parents who are dealing with advanced stages or something that might actually be terminal?
So I can answer as a parent and as someone with personal experience, but a little bit out of my professional lane. So I couldn't offer any advice here because, you know, I, we don't provide
Yes.
counseling
Yep.
for parents or kids. We do provide this community where kids are going to have fun and they're going to connect with others and have mentorship. I think, I remember a very helpful conversation that I had with a school counselor who was responding to this question of, "Well, how do I protect my kid from this?" And
Mhm.
he just said very bluntly, no one is going to protect your kid from suffering and from grieving. And so I had to first accept that okay, you're right. Um, this is going to be hard, of course. This is going to be inconceivable, unimaginable news to deliver to a kid. Um, but what you have to think about is helping them through it. You don't get past it, of course, and they won't, but they will be able to live with it. And having a mindset of, all right, I'm going to help my child through this very painful thing is a different thing than saying, I'm going to solve this for my kid, or I'm going to protect my kid from pain, or shield them from uh, the 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 grief that certainly follow, because it's normal and healthy. This is happening. If there's a
Yeah.
terminal event that is going to have, if there's a death that's going to happen, it's sad. And the question I think that's most helpful or was most helpful to me as a parent when I was going through that is, okay, how can I help my daughter prepare for this? Or really it was about be present for her right now and what she might be feeling or thinking right now and try to provide the support that she needs right now with an eye to she's going to live with this. She's
Hmm.
going to survive. She's going to grow up. She's going to be 6. Then she's going to be 7. She's going to be in second grade, third grade. And right now, this is what she needs. Those were some of the experiences and thought processes and pieces of advice that I had received about 10 years ago.
And that again, that reframing of this is something to be solved to this is something that I could help them through. I think is just very important across any type of experience because you're right, as parents, we want to protect our children from pain and we want to solve the problem for them. We want to solve that pain for them. We want to make sure they don't experience, but thinking about just helping them through and like walking beside them, right? This idea of just walking beside your child as they're going through it. And as you're going through it, there's something very, very powerful there. So, yes, thank you for sharing that from the parents' perspective. And I know that KESM does not provide counseling, so it's good to have that reminder. But thank you for sharing your own personal experience with
Right.
that.
It's what are we solving? We are
Yeah,
solving some things. We're not solving we're not preventing or reversing a cancer or
yeah,
a bad outcome, but we are solving for worry or
yeah,
isolation, or lack of community, or solving for, hey, childhood is changing in these ways, and some of those don't have to happen. We can
yeah,
provide community. We can provide someone to look up to. We can provide a chance to feel like a kid again and not have to, and to escape the worries of home
yeah.
or extra responsibilities of home.
And I want to, you've mentioned a couple of times that the year-round programs. I would love for you to talk more about what KESM provides year-round for children to keep that community going and to keep that connection going.
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked. I mean, we have been on a journey. We did start with sleepaway camp and scaled that, and we have, this year we will serve about 8,000 kids with the camp custom across the country, which is really an incredible um, impact to make. But we're not finished. As I
Yeah,
mentioned at the beginning, there are 5 million kids impacted by parents' cancer, and we want to provide our support and community to more of them. So we will be we have this idea of meeting kids where they are. And our goal is really to increase the number and the diversity of the children that Kesem serves. Because we want to carry want to we know that we have this magic, and Kesem means
yeah,
magic, and this idea of creating community and having a, a, a someone to look up to in a college student. And the college kid is going to give attention to you and help you see that there's fun in life and provide understanding or a sense of belonging, and demonstrate and model resilience. We want to pull that throughout the year. And so we have day experiences and our friends and family days. Most of our college chapters have those throughout the year, several of
yeah,
maybe once a quarter, um, anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year. We're also launching a virtual program that we call Club Custom, and this is a monthly, and we're beginning to scale this, invest more in this, so that it is a terrific opportunity for people who want to engage with Custom throughout the year. They may go to camp, they may not, or they're not interested in sleepaway camp for many reasons. But what we've created is a program that still has this sense of community, this fun, and provides connection with a college age, um, you know, group of students
yeah,
who still bring that magic. Um, and that program enables us to reach kids and families outside of the geographies, where there might be a camp KESM or one of our friends and family days, or people who aren't ready to go to camp. What's great about it is it's also a first sort of, it can be a starter experience, that or friends and family days. You can come and experience it and decide, oh, I really am interested in doing Camp Kesem, or Friends and Family Days was fun. I'd like to try out Club Kesem, the virtual program. We're also experimenting, or not experimenting, we have been experimenting successfully, and we'll be scaling up half-day programs at cancer centers all across the country, where there's a cancer center or a hospital that has a cohort of patients, and they want to provide services for families, for the whole family. Well, we can go there and replicate a custom experience in an afternoon, and reach another group of people who might not have access or awareness or the ability to join in other custom programs. So we are adding more and more year-round opportunities to experience the support and the magic of Kesem.
I had not known about the half day, but I think that's amazing. That's gonna help so many people. And what I love about Club Kesem too, my son does that as well. Um, as a parent, it's hard to send your kid to sleepaway camp. The first year was hard for me. The first year was hard for Kelly. And you hear parents being hesitant of like, I don't want my son or I don't want my daughter, I don't want my children away from me. So Club Kesem, like you said, gives them the opportunity to have somewhat of that experience and kind of, still have that community that when they're not maybe ready for camp. So thank you for sharing that. I know we have a couple of minutes left. So before I let you go, I wanted to ask what has been, I know you haven't been in the role super long, but what has been the most rewarding part of your role as CEO of Kesem?
Meeting members of the community has just been incredible. And in particular, meeting parents and hearing the difference that Kesem has made in their lives, in their kids' lives, is just incredible. And hearing the stories, we start most of our meetings with a mission moment, where we will share a story that one of our chapters has provided, or read a letter or some sort of correspondence, and hearing time and again just dozens and dozens of stories of how how individuals have been um, um, really shaped and changed profoundly by their Kesem experience. That has been so rewarding. And then meeting the college student leaders who give so much of their time and who really do become superheroes to these kids. They they just give me such hope for our future, knowing that hey, there's over 4,000 Kesem student volunteers right now on over 100 colleges around the country, and they're continually recruiting and refreshing that pipeline, knowing that they're going out into the world, having had this experience of changing lives. That is also inspirational for me.
It I would say, speaking to parents one on one, I think it's inspirational for us too to just see. Again, I'm so amazed by their commitment and dedication. And I don't want to forget a couple of things that are amazing about the flagship program. One with the counselors, I know in UT Austin, I know other places too. They'll be there for the children year round. Like they'll go to games, they'll send birthday cards. They've sent Kelly warm and fuzzies when he needed them, especially when my second cancer diagnosis. Some of them even sent videos that made me cry. Like I think I cry more than Kelly does at these things. Like they're so touching. But the other thing that I think is really fun, and before we go, I want you to talk about we have Kesem names. We have Camp Kesem names. Kelly's is pretty straightforward. It's just Kelly Belly. Mine is Gotcha, but you get some really fun ones that have their own stories behind it. So I would love for you to just it's talking about the fun of Camp Kesem, like the fun of the Camp Kesem name.
It is a really fun part of Kesem, is picking out who you're going to be. So you can go by your given name, but most people will choose a Kesem name. Mine is, I'll reveal it to you right now, is Country Ham.
I
So
love that.
it's a I live in California and I have since 2001, but I'm from the South, from South Carolina, and I chose country ham because it's a nod to where I was from, and it's a food that I absolutely love, and I also love to ham it up. So I'll say my wife also, Mia, my new wife Mia, has her name, and hers is Biscuit. So a really excellent complement to country ham is the magical combination of a country ham biscuit.
I love that. Yeah. So for me, mine, Kelly Belly was just a nickname we gave him. And when he was like thinking, he's like, Kelly Belly, I love it. I want to keep it. For me, people don't know how to pronounce my last name. So I have like gotcha, gotcha, scotcha. Like I tell them. So I'm like, that's going to be my Kesem name. And my partner, who's my son's stepdad, his is Shamalama because no one knows how to pronounce his last name either. And so he's just like, it's just perfect. I did want you to, if you could, explain what warm and fuzzies are, because I know like we were going back and forth and using some terms that is, unique to Kesem. So for our listeners, can you explain what warm and fuzzies are?
Well, I think it might be just what it sounds like. I'm gonna give you a warm and fuzzy. I'm gonna make you feel really special and seen and understood. And it might be a compliment, it might be a story, it might be a funny joke. Uh, uh, and it's something that's gonna lift your mood and probably be something memorable. And they're very light and lighthearted, but they're also warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. No, I like it really, they really are what they sound like. But thank you for that. Cause I I I'm a journalist by trade, so I talk in jargon a lot. And then sometimes people be like, can you explain what that is? And I'm like, oh, I forgot other people. And so thank you for explaining that. Before we let you go, is there anything that we hadn't touched on that you think is really important for this conversation?
This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me. I think that I would just reiterate that at the core of Kesem is the idea that no kid should feel alone. And we have so many different fun-filled and creative programs that create this lasting community. And what I see when I look at the data, and we ask for a lot of feedback,
Yeah.
and the surveys that we see are consistent, that Kesem works. It's just incredible. We have 99% say they'd recommend Kesem to another family. So that is a sure sign that what we have here is something that is incredibly valuable. 98% their kids gained confidence. 98% their children made new friends. Another 99% gave their child a sense of community. The seeing the impact when I speak to people, and then seeing it in these numbers, it sort of gives me goosebumps and makes the hair on the back of my head sort of stand up when I realize how powerful Kesem is, and what a lifelong um, life-changing experience it can be for kids, and then frankly also for their parents and their communities. To know that there's something out there positive for the kids.
It really is powerful. Like, and I know I said it at the top that I'm constantly talking about Kesem, and it is because it is so powerful. And like now I didn't want to cry the entire interview, and now the tears want to come. So I'm gonna take it a step back, but it really is powerful. Like it's done so much for Kelly and so many other kids. So thank you for that. And thank you for this conversation. It has been wonderful. Before we sign off, can you tell everyone where to find more information?
Thank you very much. Yes, kesem.org, KESEM.org.
Perfect. Well, you have a wonderful day and a wonderful camp season because it's coming up. So
It's coming up.
it's
Thank you so much for having me, and importantly for advocating for Kesem and helping to spread the word that our 100% free programs they're available right now. Registration is open, and we invite as many people as we can contact, and spread the word to get involved with Kesem. We are here.
Thanks for listening to Kidney Cancer Unfiltered. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. For more resources and episodes, visit kidneycancer.org or follow Kidney Cancer Association on social media. Until next time, take care, and remember, you're not alone.